समस्त जन कल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्. One man who was once driving us in the car, Gurudev used to always sit in the front seat, not on the back seat. And when asked, Gurudev, why don't you sit behind? Most of the people, including the chauffeur, Gurudev would sit in the front seat, in a way giving respect to the driver. But when anybody said to Gurudev, sit behind, we are taking you to the Yagyashala, he would say, the front seat is meant for the driver and the cleaner. You are the driver and my job is to clean our hearts, of course. Remove our impurities. In one such ride, there was this gentleman who used to drive Gurudev to the Yagyashala. It has happened with me also. And while driving, he used to ask a lot of questions, and one day he tells Gurudev that, Swamiji, don't get me wrong. I love coming to your discourses. I especially enjoy the humor. And of course, the recognition that I get also because he used to be the MC. I enjoy coming to your talk. I find it very logical, humorous, entertaining. But what is the purpose of this Vedanta? What is the purpose of this Bhagavad Gita and these discourses? If you say it is to be happy, I'm already happy. Gurudev, in his imitable style, looked at him and said, why not you would be happy? You'd be a madman if you're not happy. You've got a beautiful wife who is absolutely, and even those days, absolutely obedient to you, follows you everywhere, cooks for you. If you are not going to be happy, something's wrong with you. You have such a lovely wife. You have got children who are growing up in our Bal Vihar with such virtues, values, and achievement, and cheerful, obedient children. Business is doing well. You are young, dynamic. You have hopes and ambitions. Why will you not be happy? So he said, yes, then why do I come for these sessions? I mean, what is the purpose of it? Of course, I enjoy it, but what is the purpose of all this knowledge? And Gurudev said, suppose if anything happens to any of your children, they go through depression or even they fail in the school, if there are losses in your business and you find out that your wife He just said that much. He said, Swamiji, please stop, please stop. Because what do Swami say come true? Gurudev said that your happiness is dependent on so many factors of life that any imbalance, that one failure, that one sorrow takes over your entire life, that you overlook all the other success, joy, love you have in your life. How insecure are people in this world, for their happiness generally stands balancing on a pinhead. In a moment, it can collapse, just like a dewdrop on a lotus petal. Are we truly free to be happy? Is a question that Gurudev asked himself and made us inquire. Are we free to be happy? Moksha is not some freedom from life or from death or even from action. Moksha is not freedom from action, but freedom in action. Moksha is not freedom from birth and death. Moksha is freedom to be happy in birth or death, which is only a transition period between two manifestations. To be happy, are we free? Our happiness is dependent on things and beings, situations of the world, which are constantly changing. Puja Gurudev and these great Sreshta Purushas, they demonstrated that how living through life circumstances, they did not just sit in one place, but loka sangrahame vapi sampashan kartum arhasi, as Krishna says in the Gita, that those who have no desire, those who have got all the satisfaction in the self, all the degrees of satisfaction, joy, pleasure, happiness in the self, tasya karyam na vidyate. Really speaking, for what? Kim icchan kasya kamaya? Shariram anusvanjarit. Why would such a person, because you also, if you did not need anything, you did not want anything, you did not desire anything, nor did you have any goal or ambition, what would you want to do? Just sit back there. Yet, do these great people just sit back and do nothing? We find them doing variety of actions with greater dynamism and hours of work than any one of us. You must have all heard, but we have seen it. Literally 20 hours a day we saw Gurudev working, spreading knowledge and happiness, planning projects, inspiring people, and very often single-handedly raising the funds, designing the projects, inspiring the people, building the institutions, and handing it over for people as a means for their spiritual growth. Because through karma yoga alone can we rise above our likes, dislikes, desires to some extent, and get the evidence that it is possible to have happiness while doing the work, then to desire happiness with hopes and expectations in the future. If we can't be happy now, if we cannot be happy doing what we are doing, and hope to get happiness as a result of the unhappy job or work or duty that we do, then we suffer through the journey, and the destination or the end result also is not satisfying. Therefore, these great masters demonstrate to us how to act in this world. Not give up action, because action by action, we reap the results of our actions, and reacting to those results of our actions with our likes and dislikes, hopes and expectations, clinging on with attachments to those results, having anxiety for them, working inefficiently because most of our energies are dissipated in the future. Therefore, one beautiful verse that Gurudev would make us memorize, that summarizes that secret of success without stress. And that was, Mai sarvani karmani sanyasyadhyatma chetasa nirashir nirmamo bhutva yudhyasva vigata jwaraha. Mai sarvani karmani sanyasya. Sanyasya means dedicating, offering. Mai. Here the Lord says, the Lord who is the giver of the totality, from whom we have received everything, dedicating all actions to me for the well-being of everyone, adhyatma chetasa, with mind centered in the self. Nirashi nirmama bhutva. Nirashi, without hopes for happiness in the future, without expectations of limited results for the future, without attachment to that result in the future, without anxiety and worries for it. Nirmama. How is it possible? Without this ego, which is a bundle of memories of the past, its reactions, its vasanas, its desires, its failures, its regrets, its limitations, and its attachments. Yudhyasva. Arjuna is a warrior, but we all have to, like a warrior, face life circumstances bravely, all situations courageously, all obstacles with fortitude. Yudhyasva vigata jvaraha. Without any fervor, without any fever, without over-excitement. Here is the secret of why and how to act and what to achieve through action. And this is how Gurudev demonstrated. Whatever actions he did, if you asked him, and I remember the first time to attend the camp at Siddhbadi, I came to Bombay, and we would just find out where Gurudev is going for Bhiksha or where Gurudev was having his programs and try to gain the maximum. And we found that there was a program by some business people, one of the Lions Rotary program, business people, and Gurudev was going to address all these business people, managing directors and CEOs of all the companies on value-based education and value-based management. We barged into that crowded hall with thousands of people, and I remember standing behind and listening to Gurudev's discourses. And this is the verse, and with what dynamism he is to speak, encouraging people that you are people of dynamism. You are already achievers. But to bring about greater dynamism in you and discover your greater potential, when you work with ego and selfish desires, no doubt you get the motivation to work rather than be lazy, lethargic, procrastinating, and to fulfill your desires, you are whipped into activity. But having achieved wealth, position, most people then lose their motivation, their desire, because how much more do you actually need? And give up striving, give up activity. Or if there is any failure or possibility of loss, escape from the situation. But just as a mother who loves the children cannot afford even in the crisis to stop working, never to give up, and does so much work because of her love. In the same way, so far you have been working for yourself. You've got a lot. Now work. Work for a higher and nobler goal. Joining together, Gobler goal. Higher and nobler goal. When you work for that and you have love, reverence, devotion for your country, for the totality, the higher and nobler is your goal, and greater is the love with which you work for the success, the prosperity, the well-being of many others, your team, your industry, your profession, your family, with a sense of responsibility and duty. Not only when you love and have a greater goal, the dynamism that comes out of you, that surge of strength and energy, that fortitude, and even that ability and talent to go beyond your own self-imposed limitations, your own ego, which when feels limited, boasts outside like the bloated frog to show I am as big as the whale in the ocean, but cannot even imagine the vast ocean in its puny little well. That how vast and endless is the ocean. What infinite potential lies in each one of us when, with whatever capacity we have, whatever talent we have, whatever skills we have developed, all we have to have is work with dedication, with gratitude. Work because we have been given the ability, and it is our duty to serve the Lord, serve the world with that which we have been given. Then there is no selfish attachment, there is no anxiety for the result. It has to be done. And there is no selfish want for it. The existing likes, dislikes are overcome in such inspirational work. The work itself gives us a certain amount of fulfillment and joy, that the results are only a bonus. We don't react to it. Do not create more dissatisfactions, more cravings, more desire. If you see the life of great people and see of Gurudev himself, doing or trying to achieve his degree in law and literature in Lucknow University, when he came across the freedom movement and recognizing that the country now needs to be free, he, that mischievous child, full of pranks, that fashionable youngster, and even there quite naughty, but just as we tell the parents, mischievousness and restlessness of a child or a teenager is the sign of that person's dynamism, energy. The extra energy that that person has, not a dull child, given a direction, given a goal to have a direction to move in life, to act. That mischievousness becomes, or overactiveness becomes dynamism. That curiosity becomes innovativeness. And see that when we work self-inclusively for the many, with a sense of responsibility, love and dedication, not for recognition, thank yous, appreciation, but as a sense of duty. And duty means here not a cumbersome thing imposed upon me, but my gratitude. Work becomes inspirational, and likes and dislikes do not matter. And we realize that without likes and dislikes, we can be happy. And we are ready to give up our small pleasures in the sheer joy of working in love. And the sense of achievement that comes when we do such a work, that's just the finite fruit of action. The temporary joy that rises from it becomes insignificant. We don't have to give it up. It is insignificant in front of it. And thus, that secret of action, in one word, detachment. And Gurudev used to explain attachment is always I and my want. When it is there, there is attachment. And therefore, when you say work without attachment, it means work without this limited, finite, incomplete ego. And in love, when we transcend this ego, and in that magnificent happiness, all pleasures become insignificant. It is not that we said in the previous session that we do not get pleasures when we experience the sense object. It doesn't come from the object, but we do experience pleasure. And that misapprehension that it came from that object makes us attached to that object, wanting more and more of that pleasures, not realizing that it still comes from the happiness within. So it might sound easy to say, give up desire. Even with such inquiry, most people will not be able to. But when with love and dedication, a parent works for his or her children, rises above many desires. When a soldier or a freedom fighter, when a person works for the upliftment of his country or her country, rises above many attachments, selfishness, arrogance, and begins to discover the greater potential, the greater fulfillment in action, and then begins to strive to find the source of all fulfillment, that infinite bliss that lies within. When Pujya Gurudev joined the freedom movement, when you hear what all he did, and many people who were part of the freedom movement were not recognized, many even died in many countries of the world, not only in India. How much or how many people know or appreciated it? And where did Gurudev even go on declaring what happened to him during the freedom movement? At that moment, with that passion in mind, that my country and fellow men and women and children have to be free. Many great people give up their life. Pujya Gurudev also was being chased by the British police at that time. Look at his courage, look at his intelligence. He went and joined the British intelligence there, deciphering their codes. And just as in the world, we search for something outside like happiness, never finding it, and never search it close to ourselves, within ourselves, he was not found. And he continued there. And finally, when he was captured, when he was caught, he was put to jail, and there, sick, almost dying, was thrown out so that the jailers would not be blamed for the number of death, lying on the streets to die with that typhoid. But जाको राखे साइयां मार सके ना कोई. What we need in life, we have to live in some form or the other. It will come to us. We do not even have to worry about it. But those who work dedicated to the higher goal, they have no demands for their needs. They have got no demands for anything, because working with love, living in love, and dying in love is fulfillment for such people. It is only through such karma yoga that we are able to prajahati kaman, be able to give up our desires and recognize that desires can be given up. Attachments for the lower can be given up when we get attached to something higher, nobler, greater source of happiness. And therefore, such a person, how does he meet life's situations? How does she go out to meet the world? That is pointed out. That sense of freedom in every situation of life. And Bhagavan says, Dukkeshvanudvigna manaha Sukheshu vigataspruha Vitaraga bhaya krodha Stitadhir muniruchyate. Stitadhir muniruchyate. Such a person is called as the sage of steady wisdom, who dukkeshvanudvigna manaha, who in sorrows or occasions where most people would experience sorrow, anudvigna manaha, doesn't mean that such a person is an insensitive, unemotional piece of rock. It is these masters, when they see the suffering of others, they have pain and suffering, but not anudvigna manaha. With the sufferings that they have gone through, and even the sufferings of that world that they see, for which they act with compassion and love, they don't become miserable and bitter with life. They don't give up on life, but on the contrary, they work with greater enthusiasm and zest. And I remember how people used to go with sorrow, and how Gurudev used to make them laugh and forget their sorrow and make them understand that the most difficult situation can be easily crossed if we accept life as it is, without likes, dislikes, desires, and our own false expectation. I remember a situation. I was with Gurudev in an elevator, a lift. And these lifts in London are so small that only 2 people can be in it. Gurudev was being taken on the wheelchair, but he would get into the lift and stand there. And the person who was taking Gurudev in the lift, those days I was also recovering with a very severe illness, by which I was in excruciating pain and could not walk much. But I was recovering. I had to climb the steps and go, and I would manage it in pain. And Gurudev had observed one day before. That day suddenly, as this person got into the lift to accompany him, he said, "You go out. Send my Swami in. He can't climb steps." I said, "No, Gurudev, I can climb steps." He said, "No, you come in." And we both were in the lift. He had also difficulty in walking. This was just 1 month before his Mahasamadhi. I was just recovering from excruciating pain by which I thought I would never walk again. And we are standing in the lift. And I can see that when Gurudev saw me climbing the steps, how much sadness he must have felt for me. And I didn't want him to feel that. And he knew that I did not want him to have any discomfort. So he's standing in the lift, looking at my legs, looking at his legs, and he was always very dramatic in whatever he did. Looking at my leg, and I felt a little bit conscious as to, is my dhoti not right? Because he said, when you are in public, even how you dress, you don't have to dress fancy. And you could see how even the cotton cloth he wore, how well it was draped. So I thought, is it my dhoti too short or what? He kept looking at me, he kept looking at himself. Looked at me, looked at himself. And then he says, I think that the people in UK will come to the conclusion after listening to Vedanta that Vedanta gives you leg problems. Because the old Swami cannot walk, the young Swami cannot walk. And as the doors opened, we were bursting with laughter, and the people saw two people who could not walk in excruciating pain walking out laughing. Anudvigna manaha. No situation in life to make us constantly miserable. Sukheshu vigatas prahaha. Even in moments of joy, pleasure, or luxury, without any attachment. How he traveled from one place to another, in whatever discomfort he had to live, or even sometimes in whatever luxury people provided him. Neither did he complain, neither did he stay anywhere longer. In fact, would complete his Gyan Yagya, his discourses. In fact, from the Yagyashala would catch a flight, even from Hong Kong to San Francisco, that very night, and start the discourse the next day. He did it. So, can we, getting inspiration from him? And that's how we did it. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. As many times we hear the Ramayana, there is something that stirs our heart, that changes our personality, builds our character, and to climb greater heights of achievements. Come, face all life situations, living a life of dharma. Ramayana, craft your character.